Thank you very much indeed, Sergeant at Arms Clive. And firstly, let me open the meeting in our traditional way by ringing our bell. Not quite the same bell as we have in the Chesterfield, but certainly it is a club bell. And I'd like to start by welcoming all our visitors, in fact, welcoming everybody on screen, and perhaps a particular welcome to one or two people. Now, I'm not sure who is on screen, but perhaps Vasi will correct me if I'm wrong. We have a visitor to our club who is not a member of another club, Emily. Is she with us?
Emily is on. She's on, President David. Emily is here.
I'd like to say hello to you, Emily.
Hello.
We also have, do we have by any chance, David Omudo? David Omudo.
I haven't seen him.
Right. Or Saroj Chahabra.
No, she can't be with
Is
us
Saroj
today.
with us?
She can't be with us today. She sent apologies.
Okay. Well, thank you to Emily for being present, and we hope to see more of you in the future. Clive, could you identify other visitors that on the screen that we should be, particularly first-time visitors? Do we have any first-time visitors to our club?
Lawrence, I think you're a first-time visitor.
Rotarian President, fellow Rotarians. My name is Rotarian Lawrence Adesoye from Rotary Club of Igbe, District 9110, Lagos, Nigeria. I'm being invited by Rotarian David Obada. It's a pleasure for me joining this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Good to see you, Lawrence.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. The next item, I'd like to congratulate Caroline Muir, our member, on being awarded tomorrow the Honorary Freedom of the City of London. Caroline, could you identify yourself? Hi, I can see you now in the top right-hand corner of my screen. Unmute and say hello. Caroline, unmute and say hello.
Hello, thank you very much, President David, for the kind words. I greatly appreciate them. And I'm very proud to
Caroline, I was going to say, Caroline, in becoming an honorary freeman of the City of London, joins a very distinguished group of people, including amongst our own members, for example, the Duke of Edinburgh, who was made an honorary freeman of the city a year or two ago. But only last week, of course, our own member, Duchess Alonga Williams, was made an honorary freeman of the city. We have yet to see the pictures. It's certainly very good for our club, Caroline, to have members recognised in this way, as the city is really a central focus for our activities. And we really congratulate you on being honoured tomorrow in that way. And we hope that we will see some pictures in due course.
I'll remember to take some, but thank you very much, President David.
Well, I think you'll find Mary Craig will take some if you have a camera with you. Perhaps we could, as we did with Duchess, not a toast, but if we have a glass to take wine or to congratulate Caroline in a sort of city way, with a drink in our hand. Should I be saying that? Caroline.
Thank you very much. I'll do it. Thank you to you. And I feel very proud to become a freeman and to join so many other distinguished Rotarians. I'm just looking to become an active member of London Rotary. I've been slowed up a bit because of an operation, but I have been accepted by the C&V committee. So I hope to find a role and really get going and join the rest of you who do such good work. Thank you.
I'm pretty sure that you only have to offer once, Caroline, and you'll be accepted several times.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'd like next to, really comes under reports from officers, but I'd like to congratulate all our members who were involved in the district virtual conference. particularly those behind the scenes. I know, for example, Chicago has been working for weeks, if not months, to get the show on the road, and other members as well. Front of house, if you like, on the screen, we saw our members in no particular order: Sabrina, Colleen, Mo, and Rotaract Club Prakash all present very well on behalf of the club. There were some valuable inputs, and actually, out of interest, would those members who attended the virtual, well, no, actually, would anybody, not just our members, who attended the virtual conference over this last weekend, put up a hand or to show in some way that you were in part connected with it? Well, we could have had a few more, but I'm grateful for all of our members that actually did attend. Except for, as Harry might comment, missing my video at lunchtime yesterday. Fortunately, every president did a short production. Every president attending the conference did a short production on Saturday lunchtime, which of course is the best time not to be seen by anybody. I appreciated that. Now, other chairman committee reports. We do have a council meeting following this. But are there any reports from members? For example, Harry, do you have an update on?
Yes.
Hugh, do you have an update on the Treasury? I'll ask you in a moment, Harry, if you have a.
Okay, no problem. Yeah. Well, you going to speak? Yeah, David and other members. The very good news is that the money is still coming in for our golf charity day. £450 received this weekend alone. So including gift aid, it brings us to 5,015, a very excellent result indeed. And thanks to those members who have so kindly contributed to that, because that will be doubled by Sir David Gerard, and it will give us one of the
thank you. Thank you, Hugh. That's first time I've heard that news. That means we did make our target of £10,000, and from a standing start in 2 or 3 weeks, I think that is a fantastic effort by members of the club. I think there are still a few members who may not have chosen those charities to support, but I would hope that every member will find some way of contributing to the charitable donations in some way. But I think we'll probably be closing that particular request now, Harry. Hugh, is that right?
Oh yes, I would so. I think we could consolidate that, because it will result in a very excellent result indeed, David, and one of the best for some years actually. And
so that's a great result for Lifeline for Kids and for Noah's Ark Hospice. And it will make a difference to both those organisations, quite a significant difference, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Harry, the Arminers report.
Thank you very much, President David. Good afternoon, everybody, fellow Rotarians and visitors. I think probably want to mention that John Buchanan, who everyone knows has been unwell, continues in hospital. I have regular phone conversations with Mary. He's been a bit up and down, and I think the last time I spoke, he was on the way up again. So hopefully he's doing better, but he has been really quite unwell, and we're really concerned for him. Then I've managed to make contact with our number one, Albert Kuntz. I haven't actually spoken to him, but I have a very good connection through Martin Fingers of the Interlaken Club, who was always very kind. And when I can't get through to Albert, I sent him a message, and he's come back and said, Albert's okay. I mean, complaining as usual. He's on, he broke his hip. He's still on his Zimmer frame, but I think the fact that he's still going strong and doing his exercises is a really good sign. I've also spoken to Giovanni and Roy, and I'm pleased to say that they're okay. They don't participate in the Zoom meetings, unfortunately, but they are all right, and that's the important thing. And I think finally, I managed at long last, after several efforts, to speak to June Warren, Gordon's, our late past president, Gordon's wife, and she's okay. She has her ups and downs, but she sounded quite bright when I spoke to her. So that's good news, because we've tried several times to reach her without any success until this weekend. Thank you very much, President. That's my report.
Thank you, Harry. Are there any other reports from chairs? Okay.
And of course, Vazzy is with us today, which we're, she's still suffering from long COVID, but she is recovering, and I think she's somewhere in the meeting today.
She is with us today, yes.
That's good.
She was last week.
Oh,
yes.
that's good news. That's good news. I'd also like to remind members that the nominations for officers closes in 2 days' time. It is likely that we will have an election for one, if not more, positions. And that will mean we'll be looking to hold a postal ballot, all being well, in November. I am a little bit cautious because we don't know quite what the COVID restrictions will be in November, but that presently is our plan, to hold a postal ballot in November. Visits to other clubs. Chicago, would you like to report on your visit?
Hi, thank you, President David. Last Tuesday, I visited Club of Chicago in Illinois, the original first one club in the world. And then it was fascinating, and it's very interesting to find out the original club, what they have been doing for more than 100 years. And then they are helping not only the community in Chicago, but also helping economy, how to grow. So they are educating young people to gain the useful skills in the coronavirus the situation this year, and then also giving out iPad to people, to the people isolating and then living alone. So that was good to know. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, Chicago, of course, is the #1 club who first got involved with public policy by funding the first public toilet in Chicago. Nikki, did you want to report on your visit?
Okay.
I can't see Nikki on my screen, actually.
Okay, I'm here somewhere.
Okay.
Yes, okay.
Will I speak?
I see you.
Yes, I visited the Rotary Club of New York, and President Gerard Schriffen had invited us, and very good speaker. Didn't agree with anything he said, but it was a very good talk, and it was at 11:30 in the evening, finishing at 12:30. So, and there were about 26 people there. So that was quite interesting how well attended our meetings are. So that our meetings impressed me.
Thank you, Nikki. I think they were quite prestigious people. I think they perhaps, the next meeting is at the United Nations, isn't it, this next week? Robert Ghazi, do you want to report? I'm particularly interested in your visit to Madras.
Thank you very much. As you know, we attended this conference, as well as the usual visit to Redbridge Club, but also the sort of Rotary Club of Madras in Chennai, India. Also the Rotary International General Secretary, John Eco, was the speaker with about 380 attendees from around the world. Also attended Redbridge, as I mentioned, and their club sort of in Sabrina, which was interesting.
Yeah, and just to quickly add, with the meeting for Madras in India, we were invited to attend that, and there were 380 people attending that meeting. Pretty amazing. But John Hugo, the General Secretary of Rotary International, excellent speaker. And also, one key point I think he made was that Rotary International has distributed $7 million in grants with their it's a disaster response fund to help clubs and districts in the COVID-19 crisis, to help their communities. So their grants of up to £25,000 for clubs and districts. So the money's run out now, and they're looking at whether they do a second wave. So and the twin club, Redbridge Club in Slovenia, again very interesting, because they were sort of meeting as a hybrid, really, because the cases aren't quite so bad there. But interesting, all the projects they do, and we're looking at twinning with them on various projects to help the community locally and globally. So it's been a busy day, busy time.
Yes.
Busy time on the computer.
Thank you, Eve, and thank you everybody who's actually done a visit particularly to an international club from our club. Events, we must not forget, we have a quiz night coming up very soon on the 22nd of October, and we which Duchess is leading.
President David. Sorry to interrupt you, but I had sent a message to the council over a week ago stating that we had to postpone because the celebrity host was not available on the date that was given to me. So I'm looking for.
In that case, I apologise. That notice didn't get onto my running order, Duchess.
Sorry,
so ignore that.
Yeah.
Ignore that for the moment. But on the
it's postponed, but it's
on the 31st of October.
It's postponed.
Sorry. No, I'm sure do you have an alternative date?
Not as yet, but he's. I'm waiting for him to get back to me. I apologize. My network is really bad today.
Okay, thanks, Duchess. But we do have a meeting on the 31st of October, wine and cheese. Isabella, do you want to say a word? If Isabella's with us. It's quite difficult trying to look at three screens.
Here I am.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, President
31st
David.
of October.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone.
Bring a bottle. It's a bring a bottle, isn't it?
It is.
Bring a bottle.
BYOB and BYOC. Bring your own bottle, bring your own cheese. However, the entertainment talks will be via Zoom. And CNB is hosting a wine and cheese evening in aid of domestic violence and awareness. We have a therapist that's going to tell us all about domestic violence. We have a host of charities, more importantly, the ones that have been in the BBC News lately, like Refuge and Chums. We have representatives from those charities, as well as Women in Health. So it's going to be a very informative evening. And please, if you are able to attend, please attend. 31st of October,
I think I should
1845.
Sorry. 18. Give the time again.
1845.
The time.
1845.
Okay. You have got. Okay. You have got Superman visiting, I gather, or is that just a rumor?
Well, apparently Superman is meant to be there, including Batman.
Oh,
which is yourself and Ian.
I think our vice president is in one role or the other. I wasn't sure which one it was.
Apparently he was Superman.
Okay, great. So it'll be a wine and cheese evening with Superman in attendance.
Absolutely.
And any other people, any other characters you wish to be, you don't have to be yourself attending the wine and cheese.
Yes, if you choose to wear a costume, that would just basically give us more entertainment. That would be lovely. But of course, we also want to have fun, but take the cause very seriously because it is quite a serious cause. So thank you for your kind attention, everyone.
Yeah.
Look forward to your attendance. Thank you.
Thank you, Isabella. Right, birthdays. Ralph Land, I don't think Ralph is online, is he? So
no,
no birthday boys to congratulate today. So then move on. Let us toast the Queen. This is the first toast of our lunch, and the toast is the Queen. It now gives me great pleasure to introduce our speaker, Kathryn McDowall. Kathryn has been, the CV and all the data about Kathryn's biography has been presented to you, through the newsletters. It's extremely impressive, to gain her CB in 2011, when she had been in this particular role for 6 years, just tells you how influential she has been in the field of music. I'd just like to make a reference to the London Symphony Orchestra. They have sites in St Luke's as well as the Barbican. And I think I was working in the area when St Luke's was being regenerated. And in 2004, 2005, my daughter was one of the early beneficiaries of a summer school, an orchestral summer school there. And of course, when I'm living in the Barbican, it's the village orchestra just down the road. The city is closely connected to the London Symphony Orchestra, and Kathryn is closely connected to the city. I mean, she is not for the city, but she is a DL, a deputy lieutenant, representing the Queen when the Queen is unable to attend in person at various events in her area. Kathryn, I don't want to speak any longer. I want to hear what you have to say about the situation of the London Symphony Orchestra in these particular times, and how you are managing with COVID. Last week we heard a choir organizer speak about how he was coping with keeping his choir active during COVID. But you have a much bigger task, you much bigger budget to try to manage. So if, without more ado, could I, Kathryn, ask you to speak to us, please?
Oh, thank you very much indeed, Chairman, and good afternoon, everyone. Very nice to be with you and to celebrate with the Rotarians in fine form. I do appreciate the fact that you have this lunchtime Zoom meeting and you can carry on your work in fine style remotely. London Symphony Orchestra has been based at the Barbican as our resident concert hall in London since it opened in 1982. But we also have the wonderful building that the chairman referred to, LSO St Luke's on Old Street, which is actually where we're performing at the moment. We were one of the first orchestras back to work during the pandemic, and we've been playing together at LSO St Luke's and streaming our concerts since the middle of July. It was like a military operation to get that underway and to ensure that we could operate a COVID secure environment. I've been part of some of the government steering groups on getting the performing arts back to work. And of course, there are many different complexities around performing instruments and ensuring that people are safe. But we've managed to overcome those, and we are performing every week at LSO St Luke's. Tiny audiences because we don't have room for many people, but we can reach many online. And I just picked up this morning that we'd had 100,000 views last night of our live concert, which was a partnership with YouTube and Classic FM. And so, you know, we're able to reach so many more people online. And the LSO has been doing that for some years in any event. But we're looking forward to getting back to the Barbican, we hope next month, and having about a dozen concerts, short concerts before Christmas. So we've done all sorts of things to reduce our repertoire slightly, to be able to distance the members of the orchestra, and also to ensure that our audience members are also very safe when they come to us. When we have smaller groups performing at St Luke's, lunchtime concerts and the likes, then the audience is also seating two meters apart from one another. But people have been delighted to get live music again. So by way of a little introduction to you today about the orchestra, And then I'm very happy to take any questions after that. I've got a little presentation that I can share my screen with you. So I could just romp through that if you're happy with that. And it would just give you, it would just give you an idea of how we're doing this. Now, I shall see if I can share my screen. Can you see that?
Yep, it's fine.
You can see that.
It's up, Kathryn, it's fine.
Good, great. Well, I'll just go through this little short presentation. That's actually a photograph that was taken at LSO St Luke's. You can see what a beautiful building it is. It's an old, it was a disused Hawksmoor church that had fallen into ruin, and it had lost its roof. And so the architect Levitt Bernstein put in this beautiful structure. So it's got its historic exterior and a rather contemporary interior with a wonderful acoustic. Now the LSO itself was founded in 1904 as a cooperative of musicians. So the musicians have always had a great say in how the orchestra is run and how it operates. And we've always had world-class conductors, but they are there at the invitation of the musicians, which is quite turn up for the books. I personally believe it's how you get fantastic artistic results, because everybody is bought in to the success of the organization. We've always had an international perspective and ambition. We were the first British orchestra to cross the sea, the English Channel, into France back in 1904. We were the first European orchestra to cross the Atlantic in 1912. And that was on, the story goes that the LSO was due to sail on the Titanic. So you might not have had a London Symphony Orchestra had that plan gone as originally drafted. But unfortunately, or perhaps fortunately, the Titanic sailing was delayed by 3 weeks. And because the orchestra had bookings already in America, they had to go on a different boat. And so they were actually in America when the news came through of the Titanic going down. And I think that tragedy has actually shaped the thinking of the orchestra, that they survived that time, therefore they will survive. And even now, I feel that in this current pandemic, there's been something of that determination about the way in which they have approached everything. Now, the LSO today has Sir Simon Rattle with that well-known mop of white curly hair. He is our music director, and it's wonderful to have him. We give concerts at the Barbican, roughly 70 or so a year at the Barbican, and something similar abroad, between 50 and 70 abroad every year. So we are ambassadors worldwide. Then LSO Live is our own recording label, which we set up 20 years ago, but which has really expanded in the last decade and is now audiovisual for all these streamings, as well as audio for CDs and more conventional recordings. Then our music education program, LSO Discovery, is probably the largest education community program of any orchestra worldwide, and it's based at St Luke's. And then we also have our commercial side. When people ask me, well, now which orchestra is the LSO? And so I'll spare your brushes if you were wondering. I say one of two things. Either it is the orchestra of Star Wars, that's the sound. And it's also the orchestra that was in the London Olympics with Mr. Bean. I'm sure you remember that extraordinary moment of Mr. Bean and his single note. That was the LSO. And alongside the Queen, who happens also to be our royal patron. So in terms of what we do, we have the concert program. In terms of the international work, it covers the globe really across all the major territories. In the last year, we were in Latin America, we were in Asia twice, we were in North America, and regularly across Europe. Every 7-8 years, we try to go to Australia. And we're also quite regularly in Russia. We've been to India twice in the last decade. And we're always looking at new possibilities. We've not yet been to South Africa, but maybe one day we'll manage to get to the African continent. There have been many plans over the years, but it hasn't actually yet happened. In terms of global live audience reach, it's some 237,000 every year in live, but it's many more through the digital. And these figures are actually from last year. You can completely quadruple them for what's happening at the moment. Historically, in the last decade, we've had around 5 television broadcasts every year, reaching around 7.5 million, radio broadcasts, streamings online, audio releases globally. And, you know, at the moment, I think that COVID reach has extended out of all proportions, and will continue. I don't think we will lose this. It will continue. The Discovery Programme is something that everyone in the orchestra cares hugely about. At the moment, we're reaching around 51,000 people annually, many of them young people from disadvantaged communities across London. And we will work with them in instrumental learning, such as you can see here on the photograph, but also we do a lot of work with special needs. We also work with creative music making in the classroom. We've always sought to support teachers and music making in school. So we have a relationship with the 10 East London boroughs that were identified with the Olympics, that we look at as our home constituency. But then we reach many other teachers around the UK and worldwide through our programme every year. And one of the great strengths of the last 6 months for me has been seeing our discovery work being picked up in Latin America and translated into Spanish, and being picked up more formally in Japan and being translated into Japanese. So having had relationships with these countries and territories over the years, they came back to us during lockdown and said, well, how can we sustain these connections with the LSO, even if you can't actually physically be with us? So to see our work being translated in that way is really wonderful. Next up will be China, and we'll translate into Chinese. And I imagine before long, we'll be translating into French and German as well. So these digital learning projects that I've outlined here, 49 different digital learning products have been created to date, and there will be more. The special needs work that you can see here is actually a really important part of our work. And some of the musicians in the LSO are particularly gifted in being able to communicate and identify with young people with special needs and adults with special needs. And if you have time afterwards, have a look on our website at a particular project. It was called Kindness Contagion, which was developed during lockdown, and just shows the sheer imagination of people who often feel very locked down in themselves through their disability, but who can communicate through music in amazing different ways. And looking at the area of new work, we work a lot with today's composers, and we train a lot of the younger composers to be able to write effectively for orchestra. We have around 180 young composers who've worked with us over the last 10 years. And we also commission over 30 major new works every year. So whilst we're an historic organisation, we are very contemporary in what we do. And I think that the whole way of working with composers to think about their audiences and think about the musicians that they're writing for has actually changed the way in which music is perceived. And I mentioned Star Wars, Harry Potter. The commercial side of the LSO is a really important feature. and something that we will always need to do. And certainly during this COVID period, it's really important that we've been able to actually develop the commercial side, because we're simply not able to travel at the moment. So our work at the moment is really London-based and digital, with the commercial studio work continuing as well. So of course, we're hoping that restrictions don't increase any further, but even if it were tier 3, we might find ourselves a bit more restricted on audiences, but we would still continue to stream. A circuit breaker lockdown would cause us a little bit of difficulty, but having had to pull back from performance in the summer and go back online, because we were one of the pilot schemes for the Department for Culture, Media and Sport, we'll be able to get up and running again quickly again if that should happen. People have asked us about how we're surviving financially at the moment. I'm just very relieved that we actually had a little bit of funding put by over the last 10 years. That has helped us through the last 6 months when we couldn't earn very much at all. We've then had a very welcome award from the Arts Council announced just last week. That will help us through until the spring. But at the same time, we're already raising more funds from the private sector. And the support from the government has been really important in being a catalyst for people from the private sector, donors of all levels of ability to commit. So from people who are giving us £20 through just giving, up to people who are giving us many thousands of pounds and sharing their wealth very generously. So we're able to continue our work in East London and around the world. We're able to keep the orchestra working, which is really important, and we're able to move forward. So I think I will probably pause there. There was one other thing I wanted to talk to you about, which is through the London Lieutenancy. The chairman kindly mentioned that I am a DL, and I chair a council for cultural heritage at the moment. We're aiming to work with youth clubs around London and encourage them to develop work in the cultural sector, because all the experience that personally that I've had and that I've seen other arts organizations have is that cultural activity with young people encourages team working, it encourages confidence building, and it encourages people to have a more positive outlook on their lives, often achieving much more in their academic side or their technical side as a result. So we are seeking to work with youth clubs around Greater London through London Youth and U London, who will be known to some of you. And I mention it here because I know that those youth clubs do approach Rotarians for small amounts of support to undertake projects. And so I would urge you to be as generous as you can to those youth clubs and young people. I think it's a really difficult time for them at the moment. And we're hoping that through our council, we can train the youth leaders in leading cultural activity, and that they will then be able to forge links at a local level and bridge build across London to build understanding, to build tolerance, and to build a better future for these young people. So if they approach any of your Rotary clubs for support, I hope you will be able to be generous. And I'm hoping that someone from London Rotary may well become involved in our council in the future. So without further ado, I'll hand back to the chairman and would be very happy to take questions that you may have.
Thank you very much indeed, Kathryn. I'm sure we have a lot of questions that we could ask, and some questions that we will ask. Now, can I ask you, Clive, to lead the questions?
Yes,
or
indeed.
Is that putting two hats on
fine.
you? Which...
No, that's fine, thank you. And
Bridget wants to start.
Colleen Doyle has been, she has to go, but she has a question. Colleen, are you still with us?
Hi, thanks. Yeah, hi, thanks, Clive. Hey, Kathy, thank you. Is it possible, please, for you to share with us some youth clubs that are in the area around us in London so that we can actively find a possible project to approach them and say, we'd like to support them, get involved with them to get into your program?
I certainly could, and I will do that through London Youth and You London. That's very kind.
That's fine,
because I share that with Clive, perhaps.
Yes, please, because you know the youth clubs that are already there that are involved, whereas we would be starting from scratch trying to find them. You know what I mean?
Great, thank you. Great idea.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Ciao. Bye, everybody.
Bye, Colleen. Thanks. Thanks very much, Kathryn. Ridian Jones. Ridian, you're the next speaker, and then that will be followed by Nahid. So, Ridian, would you please ask your question?
Thank you, Clive. Thank you, Kathryn. That was very interesting. I wonder if you could tell me something about the future building plans in relation to the Smithfield redevelopment, because I've read in various city sources that there's the possibility of including a new concert venue there, and would the LSO be part of that? I mean, are you involved in those discussions?
Thank you, Ridian. Very much so. There is a plan for a Centre for Music in the City of London. The plan actually is that the Museum of London, that's currently on Aldersgate Street and London Wall, it would move to the Farringdon Road end of Smithfield Market, and they have got planning consent for that move, and they have their concept designs already. So we're hoping that that will happen in the next 5 years. There are also plans to reshape the market in different ways, and there has been discussion about whether or not a concert hall would be sited there, but there are quite a lot of issues around the historic buildings that make that quite challenging. So the current plan is that the concert hall would be located on the site of the Museum of London. But you can see that there is a chain of events there. And the city also has a commercial building on that site of the Museum of London. So work is progressing on the commercial building, and that will go to planning consent in the next year. And then we'll be able to look again at that point at where the museum has got to, and whether we can get the plans for the Centre for Music and the concert hall onto their site on Aldersgate Street and London Wall. So that's the current situation. Obviously the COVID situation has caused some delay in these plans for the museum and for everyone else. But I think once we're through this pandemic, then it will be looked at again and developed further. And I think there will be a need then to revitalize the whole area and to think about people coming back into central London on a regular basis.
And Crossrail, of course, will go straight to it, won't it?
Indeed.
So the communication setup is there with that Farringdon connection. So I think it's very, very exciting, and I intend to stay fit and well long enough to see its fruition. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much. I hope you do. And you're absolutely right. Crossrail was one of the driving factors in the early stages of concept design. So we do actually have a concept design for the Centre for Music. It's very beautiful. It's in the public domain. Designs by Diller, Scofidio and Renfrew from New York. Liz Diller was the architect. It's inspiring. And so I hope that we'll be able to realize that. But obviously at the moment when people are suffering so much with the pandemic, we just have to be patient.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nahid, and that'll be followed by Vasi. Nahid, would you like to ask your question, please?
Yes, thank you very much, Clive. Thank you for a very interesting speak. Can I ask you whether you are involved closely working with Purcell School of Music? Do you have any connection with them? And also, it's very important to know the youth club around, which you're going to let everybody know.
Well, thank you very much. We certainly do have connections with the Purcell School and the Menuhin School and all of the specialist music schools. And I know that their students very often find their way through into schemes with the LSO and also into membership of the LSO in due course. But they do excellent work. I think in terms of the string schemes, I know that we have had pupils from the Purcell School on a number of occasions. We've also had young conductors coming through from Purcell. But then the normal food chain would be that they go to a music college first and then they apply through to come to the LSO. Right. And in terms of, thank you for mentioning the youth clubs again, I will certainly send that and let you know where this work is going on and see if there are ways in which you can be connected. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Can I just say before we move to our next questioner that the information that Kathryn is going to send to me, we will arrange to circulate it to everybody so you are able to access it. Thank you. And can we now move to Vasi? You have a question, please, Vasi, and then that will be followed by Eve.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kathryn. It's very amazing, brilliant talk about your music program and the work that you do. My question is, you spent some time in Vienna doing a music program with the political refugees. How did you find the challenges and what satisfaction did you get from that after the program was over? Thank you very much.
Oh, well, thank you for that question. I wanted to do some voluntary work after my studies, and I had been working with YMCA in Ireland, and they suggested that I might consider going to work in a refugee camp outside Vienna. Well, for me to start with, I thought, that doesn't sound possible even, but it turned out to be refugees from Eastern Europe. We still had an Iron Curtain at that time, and these were people that were coming across from the East, also coming from places like Afghanistan. And we had around 30 different nationalities in the camp. And I was recruited to that role as a sports specialist because that was my other interest at that time. But I realized really on day one that with the young men in the camp, the sporting activity emphasized their national boundaries. They became very competitive and quite aggressive on the sports pitch because they all tended to go for their own nationality. And so it was the Albanians who were about to kill the Afghans on my netball pitch. I went back into the leader of the volunteers and I said, I just don't know why you're doing this, because this is not our ethos. It's fine with the children and they need sport activities and we must do that. But with the young adults, this is not the sort of collaborative approach that I would expect to see. And he said, well, what do you want to do about it? And I said, well, I'm also a musician. Do you think we could try some music programs? He said, well, go ahead, be my guest. And so we set up a music evening when everyone just sat round and shared their own songs from their own nationality. And this became probably the most popular event in the diary of the YMCA work in the camp. We ended up running it about 3 times a week for the adults. And the children also became involved. And I realized then that there was an extraordinary power in music making that was different to what you achieve in sporting activity. That music and performing arts generally had an ability to communicate across language. We didn't have a common language, but that became music as our common language. And it has actually informed everything I've done since, because I realized that through music, through the beauty of a song or a solo violin or a flute, you could actually make people's experience so much better. I couldn't solve their problems. Their problems were enormous, and often they were too scared even to share their problems. But we could make their lives more bearable through music. And it's really been the driving factor for me in everything I've done since. And when I hear the LSO playing at full tilt, or playing as quietly as they can do, you sense a beauty in music that really transcends the everyday. And so I thank you for the question, because it turned out to be an incredibly significant experience for me personally, but it's also informed everything I've done since.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathryn. Eve, would you like to put your question, please?
Yes, thank you very much, Kathryn, for an excellent presentation. And actually very interesting what you said just now about the power of peace really building with music. So that's very much what Rotary is all about as well, by the way, building peace. What exactly does the East London Academy do?
The East London Academy is an opportunity for young musicians who haven't got much support from their families to encourage them to develop their talent. And we have at the moment about 40 young people working very closely with our musicians to develop their skills. And they do so by coming together. And at the moment, the majority of the program is online, but they also come to St Luke's for live activity in a socially distanced way. And really our players, it's led by the girl that was on the photograph, Belinda, who's an Australian. And she believes passionately that if she hadn't been given opportunity when she was a young teenager, she would simply not have become a professional musician. But she had a talent, and people noticed that and gave her extra help. She had no parental backing or family support, but she got it from elsewhere, and she's now a professional musician. So that's a very particular program that is designed to pick up the skills and the abilities that some young people have, but they don't have the opportunity. The music hub that's there, which was an excellent music hub, it has always been an excellent music hub. And we work very closely with them at different levels, from beginners through to quite experienced young people. And then we also work with the teachers and with the classroom activity where young people have really no music background, but we introduce them. And we introduce them to listening and to inventing music and to some performing, whether that's with percussion instruments or it might be singing. It's not necessarily through instrumental learning. So would the LSO be ready to do an event with Rotary? Well, who knows? Let's talk.
Thank you. Mac, you wish to ask a question, I believe.
Yeah, hello, Kathryn. Yeah, what it is, just a couple of questions, really. I don't know if you've been watching television recently. We had sort of a family that's very gifted in sort of music. The Masons. Exactly. Well, we've got a young chap that is my son, actually, that performed live on television many years ago with the Isita, the youngest one, you know, the sister. I don't know if you know of her. Yeah, anyway, so they're very, very gifted. I'm just wondering how comes, the London Symphony Orchestra is not including, young people like that? Because I looked at the picture that you showed, and I didn't really see any sort of true representation of what's happening in London in terms of the culture, in terms of the people. I'm just wondering, are you doing anything for more inclusion?
Absolutely. And actually the Discovery programme is very much focused on inclusion. And with the East London boroughs, if you'd seen the orchestra that was with us on the London Olympic Green and Pleasant Land, it really did look like London.
Definitely.
And Sheku Kanu Mason, who's one of the of the family. He actually recorded with us just recently. He recorded the Elgar Concerto with us as a soloist. Now, I would love to see a broader representation in the orchestra itself, but we have to do the legwork to ensure that people are coming up through the ranks. That's one of the reasons that we have the East London Academy, so that we can nurture and develop that for the future.
Right.
So I completely agree with you. I think we've got something like 26 different nationalities within the orchestra. So we are very international, but I agree, we don't look like London in the same way. I hope we will inside the next decade.
Thank you. Harry Simmons, you've got your hand raised. Would you like to address your question, please, Harry?
So I just wondered whether you were aware that Rotary in London, which covers the most of the London boroughs, also has a wonderful initiative called Youth Makes Music.
Harry, can I just interject here? I don't wish to cut across you, but Kathryn was there at the Youth Makes Music concert.
Well, I'm very glad she was there. Thank you for letting me know.
Yeah, that was what led to this connection, actually.
Yes.
Okay.
Because the Lord Lieutenant had asked me to go along to that event. So yeah, it's good to see what you're doing in that respect, and the wonderful talent that was there that evening.
I'm glad you're impressed.
Thank you. Yes, Anthony Newton.
Thank you, Kathryn, for a fascinating talk. And with all the information and details you're giving out, I'm interested in perhaps some of the political aspects of your foreign tours. I mean, do you get Foreign Office advice as to what to do, how to, with whom to do it, and so as not to cause offence or not to be seen to be sided politically with any particular government anywhere?
Well, we're certainly quite close to the Foreign Office, but we work quite closely with the ambassadors in many different places. And we often do events with the embassies. I think the international work has been built up over such a long time that we have those direct relationships with different promoters and different agencies in the different territories. So I think there's quite a lot of in-house knowledge as well. And so that connection with the embassies, with the British Council, and with business abroad. I mean, I didn't really talk much about the sort of whole economy of the LSO, but we earn 75% of our income. And that means that we have good connections with the business world, the corporates and individuals. And that has made us more entrepreneurial, really, over the years. And certainly one of the aspects I love about the international work is that ambassadorial soft power dimension of it. And we're always very happy to be developing that. I mean, interestingly, at the moment, we were supposed to be in Japan at the end of September and couldn't go. So we've put a whole digital program together that will be streamed and broadcast in Japan. And as you will be aware, we're on the cusp of signing a trade deal between the UK and Japan. And I think our cultural program will actually be coincided with that launch, which, you know, is exactly the way I would like to see it happening, that we are representing the best of Team UK and valued as such, and then properly linked into the education side, into the commerce world in the countries that we're working with. And certainly in Japan, we have an excellent relationship with the embassy, with the British Council, and with the Japanese government.
Thank you. As a matter of historical information, did the LSO go to South Africa in apartheid times?
No, we didn't. Some of the other orchestras did. I would love to be going to South Africa, and we've had a few plans to do it since apartheid, but we've not actually achieved that one yet. So that's still on my list of to-dos.
Can I ask?
Yes, Chicago, please.
Oh, thank you so much. Hi, thank you so much, Kathryn, your speech. I'm a Japanese journalist for art and culture based in London, and then used to visiting the St Luke and the venue, which is my one of my favorite venue in London, of course. And then I know so many Japanese artists, the visiting the Barbican Centre, regularly, and then I'm always writing review about the Barbican, the activities. So is there anything like between the bridge between the UK and Japan? We have 3 Japanese inside Club London, so we could support you. And then my question is, I'm a district interact officer this year, and then I'm kind of curious about how you manage or deal with the children during the pandemic, because sometimes it's really difficult to engage children online, because it's especially disadvantaged children need more support physically and mentally. And how do you manage it?
Yeah, it's a good question. During the first 3 months of the lockdown, we put a lot of our materials that we would normally be sharing in the live context with schools, we put them online, and we worked directly with the teachers in order to get to their pupils. And that worked well because the schools were all looking for more material. Similarly, families were looking for more material. So we gave them the resources, everything for free online. And that was very appreciated. But as you will know, the statistics are showing that the more disadvantaged young people maybe don't have the same access to the internet, or don't have the help to help them to learn, or don't have the peace and quiet at home to be able to engage in that way. And so we are providing particular resources into the schools that are focused on trying to reach the hard to reach young people. So we do that through our network of the 10 East London boroughs, because many of those young people are actually to be found in these places. And then we target the material particularly to them.
I see. Okay.
And then also we have a number of singing projects that happen at LSO St Luke's, and we're now putting those onto online connections as well, and just one by one trying to connect in the young people again and to support them. It's very labor intensive, but it's very important.
Oh, thank you. And then also I have my son, he's a ballet dancer, and then I'm pretty much supporting all the artists in the UK as well. And then as you know, it's the government funding is less, so how do you cope with it?
Yes, well, the freelance musicians and artists are really in a lot of difficulty at the moment, because the freelance support scheme has many gaps in it, and many people have fallen through the cracks. So we are trying to do what we can to support all our 100 LSO members and to make sure that there is work for them. And then we're working with other bodies like the Royal Philharmonic Society, the Royal Society of Musicians, Help Musicians, all of whom have made special schemes to support individual musicians in hardship. And I know that's happened in the dance world as well, and in the theatre world. I know that the Lloyd Webber organisation has set aside particular resources to support freelance actors. It's a really difficult area at the moment. And the longer this pandemic goes on, the more people are going to be really badly affected by that. We hear a lot about the hospitality industry and how people are affected there. The performing arts are very similar.
Definitely, yes. Thank you so much.
Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, my fellow Rotarians, time has beaten us and we don't have time for any more questions. So can I hand back to President David?
Thank you very much indeed, Kathryn. Thank you, Clive. Nothing more remains now than to ask Clive if he will give you, Kathryn, his heartfelt vote of thanks.
Thank you very much, President David. I am delighted to have been asked to propose this vote of thanks to you, Kathryn. I have had the pleasure of listening to LSO many times over the years, but I was totally unaware of your community outreach, which sounds extremely impressive. And I'm sure everybody else, has found your talk both interesting and informative and quite fascinating. As you said, this came about because we met at the Youth Makes Music just before everything went into lockdown. And I asked you if you would address our club, and you very kindly said, in amongst your very busy schedule, that you would do this. I am so glad that I posed this question. I'm so glad that you managed to find the time to talk to us today. It has been a truly wonderful talk. And I would invite my fellow Rotarians, even if you can't hear, you might be able to see them, to thank you in the usual way. Thank you very much indeed, Kathryn.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to join you today. Good luck with all your work. I know you do great work in the local community. I've been aware of Rotary since I was a young girl growing up in Ireland, and I thank you for continuing to fly the flag for all the work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I now have the pleasure of presenting you, Kathryn, with your certificate, evidence, if you like, that you've been speaking to us today. I will send it to you digitally, and hopefully I might even get a copy to you in person. But thank you again.
Thank you very much. Well, I hope to see you in the Barbican before long, Chairman.
Well, I think we all hope that. I'd just like to mention that we are going to be supporting the recovery in Beirut as a charity in the next month, and we will have some development of that at our next meeting. But our next week's speaker, following on from an organization that is 116 years old, is going to be talking about something that was initiated probably about 300 years ago. It is Patrick Spottiswoode, and he's the director of Globe Education at the Shakespeare's Globe Theatre. The Globe Education was a very important part of developing of the Wanamaker plan to develop the Globe Theatre. So next week, we're looking very much forward to hearing Patrick Spottiswoode speak to us on that topic. Now, nothing else remains but for me to offer the final toast of the day, which is, as you know, to Rotary and peace the world over. So would you raise a vessel and offer the toast to Rotary and peace the world over.
Rotary and peace the world over.
Thank you. And finally, I close the meeting.